The EV price war is heating up. It's getting hot everywhere you look, and some companies are better suited to do it than others. Some are coming to battle with no armor at all, and we're going to discuss them. I've got my good friend Herbert here from Brighter. He's going to make us a little brighter today as we talk about the various companies, their strategies, and what it means for them, who will make it and who will not. I'm Brian. Welcome to Future Rasa.
Love your intros as usual, Brian. I love it, but it's not armor. It's actually the opposite, right?
What
It's
is
like
it?
emperor with no clothes. That's really what
Yeah.
this is about today. So let's dive in.
Let's dive in. We've got some slides here. Let's go through it. Did you hear? Oh, big news. Ford has cut the price of the 2023 Mustang Mach-E up to $8,100, offers 0% financing. That's got to be great. That's last year's model. That's not this year's model. I had a chance to talk with a rep from Ford at Fully Charged in Vancouver, BC last year, where they had the all new 2024 Mach-E, and I said, "Very exciting. What's changed?" And he said, "Oh, nothing. Same car, same car." So rather than doing the model year changes like Legacy Auto usually does, or the iterative changes like Tesla does, they've gone for the no changes approach, which is very, very daring and bold.
Yeah, well, I mean, so this is obviously reeks of desperation, right? These guys have to do this because, as you'll probably share, their inventory is just skyrocketing. They need to move these vehicles off the lot so they can introduce the new model 2024. And so that's why they reduced the price to 8,000, offers 0% financing. This is crazy. So the competition they're getting from Tesla Model Y, it's really hitting the box. One of the things I've been saying for so long is that, these Ford and the other car companies, they've been stuffing the channel. And so they made their finance look really good, but they can't keep stuffing the channel. And so in Q4 they did it, in Q1 they did it, but now the dealers are saying, I can't keep buying these cars from you, stop. And so they needed to cut the price. They need to get these off the inventory lots. That's what's happening right now.
Tell viewers what channel stuffing is.
Oh, well, so this is when a traditional legacy auto sells their cars, but they sell the car not to the consumer, they sell it to the dealers. And the dealers, who are the channel, they keep it on inventory. And so it looks like when you look at Ford's or GM's kind of books, they look like they're selling these vehicles, per quarter, per year, and they're increasing it. But they're not selling it direct to consumer. So it's a way for them to kind of hide it. The dealers eat that cost. It sits on their inventory until they can try to get it out. They sometimes will do quite a bit of times, either mark it up or lower the price. So even though it looks like that, the Ford is selling at a certain price point, what the dealers end up selling it to, they could take a bath on this, and then they find ways to kind of to make them whole later as well. But it makes it look like that the Ford is doing fantastic. They're selling at a certain price point. They're selling huge numbers. So you just really don't know what's happening out there.
When in reality they're just sitting around as dead inventory. And that so here's the pricing breakdown. Rear wheel drive, 40,000, all wheel 43, and then on up from there. And the GT Performance Edition is at 57. Boy, that's a bit of a tough sell because the 2023 and now those no longer qualify. As of January 1st, those do not get the IRA credit unless you're leasing. And a lot of people don't like to lease. Leasing is not a popular option in America compared to in some countries where it is practically the norm. So even with these drastic price cuts, they've got it's still expensive. Now,
Yeah, I
they
was just I
sold,
was just
yes,
comparing these numbers with the Tesla Model Y, and they're basically at the same kind of level. And then the interesting thing that they're fighting too is not just a new car sales; it's the old car sales, right? The used car sales, because those have dramatically fallen for both Teslas as well. So that's just a new reality now, where as more Teslas come out, more Mach-E's come out, the used cars is falling in price, and so you got to lower that new car sales.
you got to lower it. So they've only sold, what is it, through ever, 108,000. And that sounds potentially quite good until you go to Auto Trader and you check how many brand new Mach E's are on sale today. Brand new, never been driven, 0 to 12 mile kind of brand new cars. 17,000, 17, 18% of every Mach-E ever built over the last 3.5 years is unsold.
Still sitting there. Yep.
And you see some of these dealers are very aspirational with their pricing. I'm to put it mildly. So the question is, how deep can you cut? We already know Ford is not making money on these units. Even at the prices they were selling them at a week ago, they're still upside down. Ford hopes to turn a profit on EVs in under 4 years. This article's from less than a year ago. So in the next 3 years, they hope to turn profitable. How likely is that, do you think?
Oh, it's impossible. Here's I just looked up the Ford loss per electric vehicle, and it starts off with, here's a fun stat.
I don't
Ford,
know how fun it is. Let's
yeah,
find out.
Ford lost $36,000 per every electric vehicle it sold in the third quarter of 2023. So if you're losing 36,000 per vehicle, this is before the $8,000 cut. I think, and then you just heard that Jim Farley was just talking about it a few days ago, where he said that they are really going to focus on the commercial business, the Ford Pro division, right? They have three divisions. One of them is commercial. And so, yeah, this is kind of like, I think this is a reduce the price, get it off inventory, and then reduce your ambitions for electric vehicles, and then really focus on the Ford Pro division. I mean, you can't afford. You're already losing 36,000. Can't do it. Now you're losing 42,000, 3,000. It's not going to happen.
Well, part of that $32,000, $40,000 loss is the R&D, is the build out, the capex, and all that. So that is less concerning. But the fact, it appears quite clearly that they are also losing money on a per unit basis. And the best way to stop losing money when you're losing money on every unit you sell is to sell fewer cars. And if there's one thing Ford's good at, it's selling fewer EVs. So that's a core competency of theirs we cannot overlook. So I think they're counting on the next car to save them. And it's unclear which car that is or how it would save them. We do know that they've got a variety of battery partnerships that has the promise to lower costs, but they've still got engineering work to do. As you and I discussed on your show, the Mach-E, if you compare the Performance Model Y against the Mach-E GT, you find that it's not as quick as the Tesla, not as cheap as the Tesla, and it weighs 600 pounds more. That's a measurable amount of money is what that is. So there's other companies out there though. Did you know that Lucid has also slashed their prices? Air Pure will now start at around 71,000, and you can get $1,000 company credit to buy charging equipment. This will save them, right?
Yeah, well, so it's unfortunate, right? Because I do think that the pure play electric vehicles makers like Lucid and Rivian and the Chinese, they're the ones that has a real chance of succeeding. And so I think Rivian will very much succeed still. Lucid, they're what, $200,000 per car per electric vehicle loss. They're just not going to make it. And so here you are. The issue and was that when Tesla came out with the Roadster, very high, very expensive, premium, kind of vehicle segment, $120,000 car. There was no other competition at that point. And now Lucid comes in and decides to go with the premium level as well. The problem is that at this point, you've got the Model S, you've got the Roadster, you've got Model Y at the high end. People have choices now. And so they really haven't been able to sell their cars very well anymore. Now, cutting prices at this amount, they can do that. They just, it's like these are high numbers, whoever ends up buying, but they're selling it in small numbers, and they're on their way out as far as I'm concerned, unless the Saudis continue to throw more money at them.
And the Saudis may well do that. They only sold something like 1,700 last quarter,
Yeah,
6,001 all of last year. They can afford to lose another 10
small
grand on
numbers.
each car.
Yeah.
It's that part is not what's going to kill them. There's, yeah, plenty of problems there. but I'm not as worried about it. I agree with you. The pure play guys have the better positioning. I just don't know if Lucid is the right solution. So you
Yeah.
mentioned the Chinese makers. Did you hear BYD's latest price war has kicked off?
I did not hear this, and you just shared this to me today. This is just a couple days ago. BYD's doing another price war, but yeah, I'm looking at the article here. It says they're going after the $11,000, the U.S. dollar amount of it. That's the segmentation they're doing it. So they are, this is a huge market, of course, in China, and they are going for it. They're going to keep lowering the price. I do think that this is very likely going to because of improved cost of goods, and so they're able to lower. This is a very different story than the other car makers that we just covered right now. This one is very much they reduce cost of goods. They're lowering the price for a low price segmentation. They're going to win a big segmentation. I don't think that this is competitive or going to compete with Tesla's upcoming compact car that's going to be, I don't know what price that they'll sell it in China, but I think this is another totally different segmentation, right? $11,000 and below. That's my guess.
Sure. And 11,000 I think is the hybrid version, but still these are under $15,000 cars. They're compelling and competitive in the Chinese market. These are not the kind of cars that you would export. But I agree with you. They're not doing this to lose money and gain market share. They're doing this because because they'd
I
rather
think they
make
can.
1%, 5% while expanding their market share. And this is, uh, you know, we've been saying for quite some time now. You interviewed Sandy Monroe recently. I had an interview with him maybe a year and a half ago now, where I asked him who's the one to watch, and he said without hesitation BYD.
I just interviewed Lei Sheng, and I'll be publishing that this weekend. He is an editor of China's EV, on the ground in China and then living in the US. So he actually has background in both. And he calls this a bloodbath. When BYD decides to do a price war, he called it a bloodbath. And he said that that's an appropriate way to describe it because one of the things when you do this, because you're flexing your muscle of being profitable. And there are hundreds of electric vehicle makers in China. Many of them already died. This is just going to be another cleaning out of those who are just struggling. And so this move here is less about BYD competing against the other Tesla. They're competing against the other Chinese, and this is, you'll get to this the next story point, but the European automakers, the American automakers, their sales in China is just fallen off a cliff, just completely fallen off the cliff. And not that they're not competing in this price range, but it's just another thing that happens when, you've got profitability, you're succeeding, you're going to just keep lowering price. This is the same thing that Tesla's doing, by the way. So, this is, I think that they're doing it because of cost of good improvements.
If you go to an EV show in the US, I would guess 30 to 50% of the people there can name every EV company that's in the US.
Yeah.
If you go to any EV show anywhere in the world, even with industry experts, and ask them to name every Chinese EV maker,
Yeah.
zero of them will be able to do it, because even the top 20 includes 15 names you've probably never heard before. And there are, as you said, without exaggeration, well north of 100 companies, probably north of 200 companies. Um, and those companies will not be able to compete against the pricing power and scale of BYD. So that's yeah, it's gonna clean out some names. Now, if you're in Europe and you're struggling you can see on the horizon Tesla's compact. You can see on the horizon all these Chinese imports are going to be here in a couple years, 3 at most. What do? Well, you form an alliance. Volkswagen, Renault, and Stellantis are apparently exploring the idea of linking up to build cheaper electric cars as Chinese made EVs and Tesla bear down on their home turf. It's a competitive weakness at Europe's biggest mass market. What are you going to do?
Yeah, okay, so Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas has a great note that they've been repeating several times. And what it was is, what are your options? And they have this kind of four-prong options, right? If you're the legacy automakers, one is to partner with Tesla, one is to partner with a Chinese company, one is to form an alliance, and one is to try to do it on your own. And so if you look at those options, for forming an alliance is actually probably the worst most desperate move, the last gasp of what you would do, because many of these automakers have already partnered with China. So we've announced agreements that Stellantis did and with Chinese automakers. So they've basically given up producing cars in China, and they're now got the rights to sell those cars in the U.S. And so they have one path of selling a low cost car to outside of China, that they refuse to partner with Tesla at this point, and so they're forced to form an alliance because they can't do it on their own. This is the most desperate move, and you can tell that you I don't know how many alliances actually end up working. Most of them just absolutely just fail.
Absolutely agree. When I was reviewing cars in maybe 2008-ish, there was this Jeep Compass that I reviewed for the week, and it was on this new platform that was shared across several brands, many brands, unlikely partners. We're going to have one engine, we're going to have one platform, and everybody just does their own thing. And what they ended up with was they got halfway through it and found that this, what it was a jack of all trades and a master of none. It was not a great car for anyone, but Jeep plowed forward and built the Compass anyway. And what a chunk of garbage that was. It was poorly suited for anything. It was maybe the worst vehicle I reviewed out of dozens and dozens, and it was just terrible all around. Of those four options, yeah, you look at going it alone, they've tried that. It's too expensive, it's too difficult. Partnering with the Chinese, they've tried that. The results are mixed, not great. Volkswagen was hoping to do better with theirs. Partnering with Tesla, I think there's just a mental hurdle there that they can't overcome that's holding them back. They need to, they should at least license the tech, at least license the manufacturing designs. Yeah. And then you forgot the best option of all, go out of business. Just go out of business. Just pack it up and go home. I don't think they want to consider
The
that
best
option
option of
just
all
yet.
is to partner with Tesla,
Yeah.
and they will be partnering with Tesla. These, like, like I think I read somewhere where somebody was telling me this, an auto industry expert. It was actually Nicholas Colas. He's 20, 30 years in the auto industry. He's in both on Wall Street and advised. He was the guy that actually helped Chrysler come out of bankruptcy, and he said that the steps that we just said, doing an alliance is the step that comes before partnering with Tesla.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Well, look at United Launch Alliance. It is a consortium of companies that used to compete against each other for launch contracts, and they've joined forces. Good for you. What you've built is ineffective, inefficient, wildly expensive, grossly over budget and over the schedule. And then SpaceX is just eating your lunch. SpaceX the other day did 3 launches within 23 hours. And then as soon as I'm telling my son that, oh, by the way, they just did another launch. It's very exciting times. I do wish the best for these companies. I do want them to see as many players survive as possible. More options is good for consumers as long as they work. Guys, in the comments, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Who are the real winners and losers between us, between the two of us? No, don't answer that one. Everybody else, like, subscribe. You know what you're doing. Smack the buttons, hit some thumbs. I don't know. And everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots, on the next one.